The following podcast contains opinions from paid professionals. The information provided in this podcast is general in nature and not advice. For free and confidential support, call 1800 858 858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
So we think episode 6 and 2 of the best days of racing anywhere across the world this Saturday, Ben, starting in Sydney at Royal Randwick, 3 Group 1s, the Flight, the Metro and the Epsom, and then down in Melbourne, the Turnbull Stakes over the 2,000 metres. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we're starting to hit peak spring now, which is fantastic. And you know what? The racing weekend past was brilliant as well. And we kind of sat on this show and said, it's not too often you get excited about a 4-horse race, but it was a huge talking point. And, you know, I was sitting watching it live, but my phone's lighting up afterwards. And it's not the typical, oh, got beat, or, you know, did you see that run or did you see that? It was all, that was the best thing I've seen for ages.
100%.
And, geez, Jenny just creates excitement, doesn't she?
Yep.
That's a point we'll touch on a little later.
Yeah, you're going to stew on that for a little bit longer. Let's get into the accountability check with some of the things that we said on the show.
I don't want to. I don't want to. Because linebacker.
Oh, naughty boy.
God bless him. He was a real lad.
Yeah, he was.
And unfortunately, he's getting to the point of being a bit unmanageable, which is tough because we know the ability's there. But for those who didn't see it, he essentially walks on 5 legs in the yard. And then usually Karen hops on and he kind of behaves himself. But this time he decided to carry on behind the gates as well.
You could see it behind the gates. Like, we've become accustomed to the exploits in the yard and know that that's just him getting excited. He's showing off. He's ready to rock and roll. And then behind the gates, it happened again. And as soon as we saw that, you knew that he was just going to be an absolute mess when it came to crunch time in the Golden Rose. Speaking to Tom Charlton on the day as well, we had him on the 7 broadcast and I said, you excited for today? Like, you've got an opportunity to win your first Group 1. He said, I cannot wait for today to be over because he is so hard to manage in the day stalls. The horses walking by, he's excited at every single he's a ball of energy. So they're going to have to do some thinking there. I had Samana. I thought she was the bet of the day. She was no good last Saturday. She was disappointing.
Yeah, she was. She got a long way back. And in fairness, when you break down the race, you were never going to make ground. The market kind of knew that maybe the conditions weren't as people anticipated, and maybe she wasn't as forward as people had hoped. And then once that smoke was around, you thought, oh, this is looking alarming. And yeah, it was on speed dominated. We touched on Amelia's Duel last week as well. We sort of said D-Day's approaching. She's got the same excuse. I mean, I know a lot closer to the speed, but I don't think that's the right setup. What I think we both agree on now, though, is that's her mark.
Yeah. She's a Group 2 mare. I would find it very surprising if she were to go on and win one of these big mile Group 1s in Sydney over the carnival. I think she's a Group 2 mare. I think we suspected that. You didn't want to be chips all in because you thought, well, if she wins the Golden Pendant, then yes, you can see her go on with it. But I think that's her mark. That's what the kind of mare she is. And, you know, again, it's that WA form coming over to the East Coast. It can be difficult to transfer. You might think you've got something of another ilk over there, but does it necessarily transfer to the East Coast where the competition is just so much hotter?
It is. And, you know, we say this time and time again, we don't want to sit here, and we're not potting a horse, but we don't want to talk down a horse. We want her to be as good as everybody says, because if you then have an Autumn Glow come along that, you know, exceeds my expectations, you're like, how good was that?
Unreal.
You know, so it's not a shame. She's a very good horse. And I'd
love to own her.
I think she could pick up a good race in a perfect setup at some point. But it's taken a while, and we've now got a body of work where we kind of know where she's at. You mentioned the West, so maybe we can go into bustling
and the Everest.
There.
Yeah. So he was taken out of the Heritage Stakes on Saturday due to track conditions. But as we said on the show last week, there was just this feeling of something's not right here, whether it was something physical or whether it was maybe he just hasn't quite come up in terms of this Sydney preparation, and if he were to compete in an Everest, he wouldn't be competitive. No. So I don't think we'll necessarily get to the bottom of that talking point, but he's out of the Everest, which means that the Werrett, Madden and Whitby slot has become open and available, which is exciting leading into the Premier Stakes this weekend, but very disappointing for them as an ownership group. They spent a huge amount of money on this gelding. I have no doubt that with time, maybe he could compete in some really hot races. It just hasn't worked out this time for one reason or another.
Yeah. Again, I hope the hype's real. And I'm not willing to draw a line through him off the back of one performance. I don't think, based on the fact that he's now out and didn't run in the Heritage, it would say there's a suspicion there's something not quite right with him. And hopefully he bounces back bigger and better than ever. Lady of Camelot's in, though. Storm Boy's in.
Well, Storm Boy's in inverted commas in. So obviously during the week at Melbourne at Flemington Track Work, Gay was down there talking to the media, and she has asserted some dominance and said, Storm Boy's in. Yep, that's the way we're heading with Storm Boy. But I don't think it was all cleared with Coolmore, and they've actually spoken to a few media outlets, including I think 7, said he's not officially in yet. We haven't dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, but it's like a fait accompli, much like Sunshine in Paris, I think.
Yeah.
Like that will be his slot, but very amusing.
And Godolphin, Traffic Warden. So given you'd think they're all slotting in perfectly, for want of a better term, how many slots do you feel are open and available? Because we've got Overpass, who I'd say is pretty unlikely at this stage.
Now at this stage, yes.
Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Private Eye and Giga Kick. So to my eye, at least 2 of those are missing, which, does kind of take away from the race touch. Even Overpass, who I think, is probably a 4th or 5th place Everest type horse, 9 out of 10. Maybe better if he gets his own way out in front. He is out in front. He adds some pace to the race. He adds some, intrigue and might throw a spanner in the works. Whereas without him,
Storm Boy, is that his opportunity?
Yes.
Is that finally his opportunity to draw a gate, to go to the front and control and dictate? Because again, on the weekend, that was what they thought was the best thing to do by the horse, because his greatest asset is that sustained speed. Wide gate, stepped slowly, didn't miss the kick, but then had to use petrol, get to the front, because that's his best asset and they don't want to take that away from him. But maybe in an Everest, if he was to draw soft and actually jump on terms, well, he could dictate.
Yeah, I think it's more winnable than a Guineas. So on that side, I guess it's the right choice, albeit plan B. But when you say draw a gate.
Yeah, I don't know what the gate is. You're so right, because if it's inside and you miss it, you're buggered.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So I think drawing a gate for him is like
6
to 8.
Yeah, not 12 though.
Room to move. No, room to move.
Yeah.
If you happen to miss it, you can go to plan B.
Yeah,
but if he draws 1 or 2, he doesn't have soft leads. They don't exist for him because I think he was actually a lot better out of the gates on Saturday, but he's not quick.
He's
that
not a
first
ping
50.
in the lead
No,
kind of horse.
no.
Yeah.
Well, you can't ping when you're that big.
No, you can't. The Barry extension might have worked a little bit on the weekend for the big boy.
Probably did.
So you talk about the slots though. So Yulong, they're yet to decide. Growing Empire, Chain of Lightning, Komochi, I would suspect one of those. Chain of Lightning goes around on the weekend. I don't think it will be her.
No.
They haven't confirmed.
Komochi was huge.
She was huge. Yeah. So I think she's probably the most likely of the situation at the moment, because I think they will go to a Coolmore with Growing Empire.
Yeah, right.
Because of the Group 1 status. We were all anticipating that the Everest was going to get this Group 1 status prior to this year's running. Hasn't happened yet. We're running out of time.
I'm absolutely looking forward to the Everest. It's going to be one of the races of the year. But I do feel as though it's changed complexion a touch. The first few editions of it, it was slot holders looking for the best 12 sprinters to run in the race. And that's been the whole argument for Group 1 status, which, let's face it, it is a Group 1 and it should be a Group 1. But now, because there are so many connections with various interests, it's not necessarily the best 12 horses. Because if it was the best 12 horses, Private Eye, Giga Kick, Think About It, and Overpass would all be in.
I semi-agree with you. I think one of the things that has changed this year is that we knew we were on the precipice of a changing of the guard, because those horses, a lot of those ones that you've mentioned, they're getting a bit older and there are new kids on the block. So I think everyone knew that the sprinting ranks of Australia are changing, whether you like it or not, and that's just time. Everyone gets older. We can't stop that from happening. Everyone's looking to jump onto the new star right now when they're 3-year-olds, and then the Whitby, Werrett and Madden slot. I think they will go with either a Think About It or a Private Eye. Just depends how the premiere pans out.
So what does Think About It have to do to get ahead of Private Eye? Or do you think he's just naturally ahead of Private Eye given last year?
Probably. And maybe that's not fair, but that's the way it is. The other interesting thing with
I'm certain Private Eye'd run top 3 again.
Yeah.
If he's in.
The other thing is that I have found fascinating over the last month is that we've had 2 Group 1 sprint races in Melbourne, the Moya and the Manikato. Neither winner. And I know they're over shorter trips. Well, the Moya is. But no one, I don't think Southport Tycoon's going to be taken.
No.
And Mornington Glory obviously is not going to an Everest. But isn't that funny how there's been such a heavy reliance and preference to the Sydney form than the Group 1 Melbourne form? Because we haven't had a Group 1 sprint race in Sydney yet, but all the slots are being filled up with the winners of the Group 2s and the Group 3s up here.
You maybe can't earn a slot as easily out of those races, but you can certainly prepare for an Everest just as well. And we said the Manikato is a great place now for it. Like, you've got Growing Empire who could well go into an Everest off the back of that, having been runner-up to Southport Tycoon. You've got I Wish I Win who ran around. So there will be, at bare minimum, there'll be one Everest horse out of it. So having spoken to a few of the Sydney trainers, quite a few of them were sending their horses, like Buenos Noches, for example. He went down to Melbourne. I know it didn't play out the way that he hoped, Matty Smith, but he went down there to say, hey, look at me. Because he didn't think he could achieve that in Sydney.
Yeah.
So
I still like the placement, and bravo to Moonee Valley. How good was the crowd there last Friday night? Like,
was it free entry?
I'm not sure.
I saw that somewhere. If it was, bravo to
awesome.
them. Because they would have spent a stack, the people in there.
It looked so good on telly.
Yeah.
It looked absolutely unreal, and we gave them a big round of applause last week, and that meeting works.
Yeah.
And if the Fian continues, I mean, you're going to obviously look at this year's edition of the Fian with the Brightside Jenny factor and like the 4-horse race added something extra special, but pre-grand final eve, like everyone in Melbourne's in complete and utter party mode, especially with 2 interstate teams coming to play in the grand final. People would have flown in from Brisbane and Sydney going, what are we going to – well, let's go to Moonee Valley. Let's go to the Valley on Friday night. How good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Hey, 2 other Everest questions, if you don't mind. I Wish I Win. How do you think it's going?
I think he's going well.
Well enough?
To win it? I don't doubt Moody. It's just one of those things. I just don't doubt him. So Moonee Valley's not his track.
No.
I think we have to put some reliance on that, saying that Moonee Valley's just not his jam. So once he gets the big track at Randwick, he could absolutely explode. What do you think? You think he's not going as well as maybe previously hoped?
I think he's maybe a length off where he was, but we haven't – blinkers are the big improver, and I'm completely in agreement with you. I would never, ever question that combination, Moody and Coleman. The only other thing was we mentioned the 4, so I'll put it to you. You've got 2 slots. You can pick 2 of the 4. Private Eye, Think About It, Overpass and Giga Kick. Who do you have in?
Oh, my God. Giga Kick, because I loved the trial so much. I was in love with that trial and the way he just savaged the line. And I've spoken on this podcast before about the fact that first up, 1,000 metres, he looked big. He's going to have taken a huge amount of improvement both from that run and the trial. And then I think almost out of pure fascination, I would have to Think About It. Because I want to see him back to that sprinting dominant best that he has displayed to us on a number of occasions. Like I want to completely forget the autumn and the winter. I want to put it in the bin and never see it again. And I want to see him back being the absolute reptile that he is in the yard. Like he is, when he's on, he's a hard horse to be around and a hard horse to look at as well, because he gets riled up and really excited to get out there. I want to see the reptile back.
Okay.
What about you?
I'll have Giga Kick and Private Eye.
Okay.
See, either way, if we choose one of Joe's, we won't upset him.
No.
But if we left both of them
Big
out.
hand for him in the premiere on Saturday. So he'll have to Think About It, Marzu, and then Coal Crusher.
It'll be a big edition of the Sydney Stakes, by the way, with a few of them missing out. But it is a big edition of the premiere on the weekend. You're right. Giga Kick favourite, probably fairly. Think About It, D-Day. with 2D days coming up potentially. So, yeah, there's a lot of depth to that race, which is fantastic. I thought Mazu's return was good.
Yeah.
Don't know that it'll be wet enough to maybe bring him in. I'm not saying he's just a wet tracker, but I think that brings him to the level of
100%.
the
That's
level
his.
of the
That's
others.
one of his strong points, no doubting that. One of the highlights at Randwick on Saturday has to be the flight stakes for the 3-year-old fillies for 2 reasons. One, because of Autumn Glow. She's this unbeaten filly who we've seen just take on every big challenge posed to her this preparation. 72, Group 3, Group 2, and done it really on her ear with a level of versatility that we haven't seen for a filly in a really long time. So for her as a star going forward, I'm excited about. The other thing I'm excited about is that it is James McDonald's big opportunity to rack up 100 Group 1 wins.
I feel as though you're lying a little bit to us.
What do you mean?
Because I feel as though the main reason you're looking forward to it is a futures bet that you have with a bigger price than $1.40. Yeah. But I'm willing to believe the tripe that you just threw my way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So James looking to bring up 100 and record time. Like, it's just ridiculous. He still feels so young, and he kind of is compared to a lot of his peers, and he's just going from strength to strength. I talked only a couple of weeks ago on here about the fact that at one point, a fortnight ago, he was 31-13 up in the Metro Premiership, looking to continue his dominance there. And who knows how many he could rack up this season. It probably depends how long he spends in Queensland and how long he spends overseas. But the Group 1s are always our marker. It's a huge achievement to ride 1, let alone 100. And when you look at the names of Aussies who've achieved it, you start to realise how rare it is.
The New Zealand Aussie Group 1 100 club is an elite club. Damien Oliver leads the charge, obviously retired now. George Moore, who passed away in 2008, and he was just, oh gosh, back in his day. I would have loved to have been around with George Moore riding in his prime. Jim Cassidy and Huey Bowman. So he would become only the 5th Australasian hoop to achieve such a feat. And you would think that all going to plan because of the filly, that he will do that.
Do you believe that, all things being equal, and he's such a hungry guy and he's a record chaser? You know, some say, they all say they don't care about records, but it's a lie. Some chase them, and James is a chaser. Do you think he'll have Ryan Moore? Do you think 2's achievable?
Oh God. It all depends where he decides to ride post getting that. Like 130 is the obvious achievement that he wants to hit here in Australia. He's publicly said that. So I want to break Ollie's record of 129. So 130 Group 1s in Australia is where he wants to hit. I think that's going to take him probably 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I can't see it taking any less than that, just because of the travel, and I think 10 a year is a pretty
So what,
good
it's
going.
taken him 16 years to get the 100, but it's been, I mean, rather than doing this, it's been doing this.
Yes. Remembering
He's getting quicker and quicker and quicker.
there's been a few horses that have obviously assisted with that, like an Animo, but I mean, he's got a broadsiding. He might have an Autumn Glow that might get him 5 in a year.
Yeah, but he never had he didn't have a Winx.
Yeah.
You know, I actually think that's one of the most amazing parts of his 100. Yeah, you bring up Animo, that's a fair point, but the spread is ridiculous.
So 36 for Chris Waller, which is, you know, that shows the partnership that they've had over the period of time. Can he get to 200? If he goes to Hong Kong and stays there for 5-10 years, no, he can't. That's plain and simple, because they don't have as many Group 1s to win over there. But if he were to go to stay in Australia and then do stints in Hong Kong and then stints in Europe, and who knows, maybe America's like a possibility in time. Yes. What do you think?
I think we'll see him overseas at some point. I had a chuckle listening to his manager, Mark Guest. I'm not sure who he did the piece with, but they said
Was
to
it
him,
me? Was
maybe,
it the piece that I
where he
did
said
with him?
99. He talked
Yes.
about the
It was
1990s.
mine.
Without me, he'd be nothing. He'd have
No,
98.
Yeah,
Is that
correct.
about right?
Yeah.
Bloody hell, I laughed.
Yeah, I had fun chatting to Guesty. He's a very
I shouldn't
interesting
forget
man.
that was your work. Good
Thanks,
work by you.
Thanks for that. Appreciate your support.
Yeah. Hey,
As
what
always.
other races you want to talk about?
we've got 3 more Group 1s to have a look at. The Turnbull in Melbourne, Buckaroo looking for 3 on the bounce, Via Sistina looking to bounce back after what was a bit of a horror show on that wet deck in the Maccabi Diva. You and I have eyes for the same horse though, at a nice little price of about $5 at the moment in Elias.
Yes, we do, and has been tough as teak.
He is a winner. Like, he's an out-and-out winner. He is yet to finish out of the top 2 in his entire career, whether it be in Europe or Australia. Like, he's just I can't see him not being in the top 3 at least.
You're going to be in either of 2 camps. One, now bearing in mind she opened up $3.70, so keep that in mind when I'm saying this. She's now $4.60, but Via Sistina, you're in one camp or the other. You're either, geez, $4.60 about a horse that SP'd is a clear favourite last time out and has really only had one poor run and we should forgive given it was a heavy track. Or I need to see her again before I can trust her and I'm willing to look around her. I still don't know which camp I'm in. I hate the fact that she could go around $5 when all she's done is put in one poor run.
On a deck that she didn't enjoy.
No.
You're so right.
So, yeah, happy to look at options around her, but I'm going to have a really close look at that race. Bear in mind, we do record on a Thursday morning, so I'll have a close look throughout the course of the afternoon. Maybe you can catch me on, should I give my plugs? Actually, we don't preview that race on Black Bookers.
Oh, no, because it's a Melbourne race.
Yeah, it is.
Into the 2 Group 1s that you will preview on that other show that you do across the screens of Sky
Black
Racing.
Bookers, 7 p.m, Sky Thoroughbred
Yeah,
Central,
sure,
Channel
sure.
5 to 8.
The Metrop and the Epsom. So the Metrop over the 2400 and the Epsom over the Classic Randwick Mile. Like, these are lotteries. And you could just pick anything. And I don't mean this to sound flippant, but they're like $7.50 the field. In the
How many in the quaddie each leg?
Oh,
second
my
and
God.
second and third leg of the quaddie.
I don't take quaddies because it just does my head in. But
Right.
if you are taking the quaddie this week, you are literally like, I think 7 or 8 in both final in 8 and 9 in the second and third legs of the quaddie.
I've had some rough luck with the quaddies lately. I went out first leg of Moonee Valley on Friday night, and then I had Southport Tycoon in.
Oh, you're kidding.
Filthy. And then on Wednesday, I went out first leg with Seafall and had edited by later on and survived the 3. Like, I'm getting to the point where I'll just go field first leg, so I survive.
Would you take fields for these?
No.
Okay, how many?
David Gately and I agree on this. The second you put F, you tick that little F box.
Short price favourite
for
wins.
field. No, for field. Well, yes, it does inevitably, but that is giving up. Like, even if you leave one out, you have to select them.
That's another rules of racing.
That is a
according
rule.
to Ben.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my other rules have caused a stir. Hey, the Metrop
Yes.
probably isn't the strongest Metrop. There are some races that have maybe been elevated with prize money that have detracted from it a touch, but that also creates a situation where we've got a really even lot, and it will be exciting to see. Chris Waller has a very heavy hand.
$1 billion.
And depending on who comes out on the morning, I mean, he could have up to 8. I don't think he will. He'll probably end up with somewhere around 4 or 5. But it's a remarkable effort once again.
In the Metrop, the horses that I've got eyes for are Allegron, Zardozi, Future History, and from the Chris Waller yard, Etna Rosso.
Etna Rosso had good support. Yeah.
They're the 4 that I liked. Wouldn't it be a story for young Zach Waddick, first Group 1 ride to win a Metropolitan at his first opportunity on board Future History? Just like this, I just think this horse is going well.
You haven't whinged about the weights yet.
Yeah, I know.
Not worth it?
There's 3 over 55 out of a field of, what are we? 18?
How many below 52? Or, sorry, 52 or lower?
1, 2, 3, 6, 7,
More than half the field.
9. Half the field below 52.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Unfair.
This has been a discussion point, particularly heading into the Melbourne Cup this year, because Without a Fight has been taken out
Yeah.
of that. So now we've got a top weight of, 55?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sit well with me.
No, it doesn't sit well with me either.
No.
And I get the argument that it brings some jockeys into the equation who otherwise wouldn't be, but it also creates, I think, a bit of a safety hazard in so many jockeys trying to ride weights that they typically wouldn't have to.
That's the one that gets me, the safety of it, because there's jockeys, and we've spoken about this before, jockeys wasting so hard to get down to ridiculously light weights. But the other thing is,
People have said to me, they don't have to get people from the bush. There are not that many that can ride those weights.
But
And
that
also,
is-
it's a group
it's a group
one.
one. This
Yeah.
is the best caliber of race we have anywhere around the world. You should have the best of the best competing in these races, not only because that's what they're designed for, but for turnover and wagering as well.
And a bit safety.
It's just
Like-
all of it.
Like it is.
I don't see how you can fight the good fight with the other one. But like give these young kids an opportunity. They'll get their time.
Kovalika a chance in the Epsom?
Yeah, I think so. He had the flashing
Amongst-
light on him last
amongst
start.
15 other
Among
chances.
15 others. Detonator Jack, Kovalika, Chaelwolf's the interesting one for me, dropping back from the 2,000 to the 1,600. That's the only slight query in my head, is because I thought he was probably a 2,000, 2,400 metre horse. So that's the only query in my head. Tom Kitten.
You can forgive him.
Can I?
Yeah, that was just a lead-up run.
Okay, so he's in my numbers. And then I'm not sure if she will be heading this way because no jockey listed next to her at a big, big price. Osbred Flirt, I reckon, can run into the top
Widdop?
4 for Brad Widdop.
Okay. Yeah, will be big odds.
Big odds.
Yeah.
But I think
Always been very capable.
she is
Okay, right down the bottom.
she is capable of putting in a big performance, particularly second up.
Okay.
Mm.
All right, we'll be featuring the Epsom on the show a little bit later. Hey, can I get my phone out? Can you play a little bit of musical interlude music just while I? Can you do any of that? Like
what do
a
you
bit of
want?
elevator music. I'm getting my list up.
What's the list about?
You know my list.
You make a lot of lists. I'd love to know the lists in your phone that are not related to racing. Like, do you have those? Can you read me a few?
Which lists are you referring to, Emma?
Can you first of all, before you go into this list, just tell us one other list in your phone that is not related to racing?
Things to do. Hang on. Things to do. Let me bring up my things to do list. I need to book my Adelaide test flights for December 6 and 7. I need to book my return flight for Teddy, Maddie and myself for Christmas. I need to buy a bookshelf. I need to cancel my Audible subscription and my Zwift bike app subscription. I need to call Australian Unity, claim a physio bill and do my tax. Is that what you're after? Good. Thank you.
So good.
How about
Audible, you're not happy with the service that they've been providing?
well, I've got 6 credits in the bank there now because I don't use it enough, and so it's just wasted. Right, you ready for my actual list?
Yeah, your actual list.
Yep. So this is a list of must-watch horses across my lifetime. So, and the best bit is that if they clip this up, people will tell me I'm wrong. It's my list.
It's Ben's list.
You know what?
Don't get angry.
Now I will forget some, and that's fine. I'm happy to interact on that.
You know
aspect.
what? This is not. Let's not get angry. This
No.
is what I'm not on Twitter. Let's not get angry. Let's just everyone's entitled to an opinion, right?
They are.
They
You
are.
would think that, but jeez. Anyway,
There's a lot of angry people out there who
there
need
are.
to just.
I think
go
this
and
is a
chill
fun
out.
one, and it should incite
Fun.
fun and enjoyable reflection for everybody because it's not necessarily the best horses. So I'll go through some special mentions. You know I love special mentions.
So it's not a list of 5, it's a list of
No,
17.
it isn't. Now I really tossed up. Winks does sneak into my top 5
She
because
does
she
top
just
5?
encapsulated. She does.
Okay.
She does sneak in there. But others like Black Caviar, you know, everyone knows Black Caviar. Everyone before there were Winks odds, there were Black Caviar odds. Like when you had a sure thing, a certainty in life, even people, Joe Blow would refer to it as Black Caviar odds of happening, right? So Frankel, same.
Are these are the
Devastating. These are special
okay,
mentions.
Right.
Tom Kitten, special mention.
Okay.
Now, obviously not of the same caliber,
No.
but did kind of break that glass ceiling to the public where they know that he was just a perennial bridesmaid. So whenever someone was a bridesmaid or a runner-up, it was referred
Like
to
a
as
Tom Melbourne?
doing a Tom Melbourne.
Okay.
Exactly. So then we've got Black and Bent. I needed a jumper in there, and I
you?
just loved, well, probably not, but I loved Black and Bent. Apache Cat for the Blaze.
Okay, yep.
Right? And then Pride of Jenny is what's stimulated this discussion because there have been some out there saying that she is the most watchable horse
100%.
they've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I was born in 1982. Don't do the math. But that means that from mid-90s, that's my watchable range, right?
Okay,
So
so
if
you're
you're
not
going
go-
to bring up Burnborough,
Yeah, don't do
I
it.
wasn't there, mate.
I'm not there.
I
I'm not
didn't
watching
see
it.
I
It's
got
all
no
good.
idea.
Yeah.
At number 5, Winks.
You had 5 or 6 in there as a preamble. Why didn't you just make it a 10?
I should have. Winks at number 5. Amazing. Drew the public in. Unbeatable once she sort of got her streak going. The best we've probably ever seen, or I've ever seen. Takeover Target at number 4.
The story.
Watchable for the story.
Yeah.
The taxi driver, shout out to Joe. Amazing horse. Went overseas. He got to meet the Queen. Like, honestly, that is what racing's built on.
Yeah.
Stories like that.
Love it.
Might and Power
Yes.
is probably my original Bride and Jenny.
Correct.
But better. And Zenyatta from overseas,
Oh, all right.
flooding home from the back from impossible positions. I think she won 19 of 20.
I feel like I know where you're heading with number 1 now.
Because she sort of gives you a lead in. There's only one horse that's ever been described as what did he describe it as? He said, this horse, if it was a human, would be licking shop windows. He was an overthinker. He was dumb as a fence post at times, but he was absolutely bloody brilliant, Chautauqua. For the story and the barriers, for the TJ wins, for that top end speed, for the trips overseas, for the fact that you knew exactly where he was. There's just something about horses of that colour, that you just see them and you identify them and you go, there it is.
Yeah.
He's the most watchable horse I've ever seen.
And he was one that you would look forward to watching, every season, because particularly towards the end, will he or won't he?
Well, this explains why he's number 1. He didn't even need to jump. To be watchable. He didn't even have to leave the barrier to be watchable. Name another horse like that.
With it at the valley and it's dark and they're getting ready to jump because that was a trial, wasn't it? As well?
Yeah.
And just poor Tommy sitting on board and just urging, and he is just literally the non-flinching about it, just the absolute. I am not moving.
Yeah, and just the ear would turn. And am I?
Oh, you
am
want
I
me?
meant to have gone?
Oh, well, guess what? I'm not doing that today. Take me home and give me my food.
Do any jump out at you that I've left off the list?
No, I mean, I'm reticent to do lists because mine would be biased due to family
They're all biased.
connections. I know, but mine would be, I'll just remove myself from that because, it'd just be horses that I loved as a kid growing up in the stable. But I think it's a very good list. Chautauqua would definitely have to be up there. You've touched on something actually that I think is a really interesting thing is the horses who have broken through social barriers to create their own vernacular in a way. She's done a Pride of Jenny.
Yeah.
He's done a Chautauqua. You know exactly what that means.
Done a Tom Melbourne. Winks odds.
Yep, that was Winks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones that break that barrier of racing into just the everyday social conversations that you know what they mean.
Hey, this is completely unrelated.
This will be good.
But you know what the Pride of Jenny Mr. Brightside race reminded me of the other day was the Gold Edition Miss Andretti sort of match race that they had. It did reinvigorate my want for the occasional match race.
It's got to be the right two horses.
It can't
though.
be every year.
No, gosh, no.
No, it might be once a decade. But
it's special though,
it's
isn't it?
just so good. Yeah.
And we mulled on it last week whether it was going to be average or awesome, and it lived up to the
Third
hype.
horse ran well.
Third horse ran real
Yeah.
good.
I reckon it would have been agonising. I don't think it was timing wise. I don't think if he
Do you think he
catches
should
it.
have led up right side or not?
Sorry?
Do you think that where Antino sat in the run was good enough?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, just get dragged in.
Yeah.
But from Mr. Brightside's thing, even if he had have eventually got past Pride of Jenny, Antino would have gone past at the exact same time. I don't think there was a time where Mr. Brightside was ever going to hit the lead.
Yeah.
It was, it was a race.
Such a race. And this weekend's races will provide us with many more storylines going forward as well. I'm looking forward to the Flight, the Metrop, the Epsom and the Turnbull, all of our 4 Group 1s for this Saturday's racing. We'll catch you next week on So We Think.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.